Listeners, welcome to this week's episode of Tales of Abundance. And as always, I'm here with Anthony Marino and Dr. John Oberg. Gentlemen, good day.
Good. It is a post Super Bowl day.
Yes. So Anthony has had some thoughts about recovering from the Super Bowl and health and wellness that fit right into our 5Fs. So Anthony, you want to ask some of the questions you were asking us?
Well, we won't talk about the game. We'll just let that, let the reporters talk all about it. But, a couple of our 5Fs are fun and fitness, and I thought it'd be an interesting topic to talk about. What are people, what was it like for you, and what has it been like for you to on Super Bowl Sunday? The world basically comes to a screeching halt. 100 million people in the United States and tens of millions more across the world stop at about 6:30 Eastern time and sit down for a football game. It doesn't seem like the most important thing in the world, but boy, we sure make it an important day. Whether it's attending a big event, party, people in the towns that are in the Super Bowl go to their local stadiums and have viewing parties, and many of us have been to, rough and tumble Super Bowl parties. And, back when I lived in California, I went to a couple of way over the top celebrity ridden parties I got some stories about. And that's the fun part. The fitness part is, we got to recover from not the most healthy food that gets served during the Super Bowl. So I just wanted to throw out some
Today they're
ideas.
taking like your queso, your blood queso content is about 60% today, and
Exactly right.
light beer is probably there 40%. Now you got to get
Yeah.
back. And by the way, Valentine's Day Saturday, if you forgot to book your reservation this coming
Yeah.
Saturday, so like this might not be the healthiest eating week of the entire year.
Yeah, and if you stroll up the supermarket aisle on Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, you won't find a Dorito to be had. So it's it's a rough ride for a lot of reasons. So
Anthony, to your point, according to Gemini now, for the 2026 Super Bowl, just in the U.S., the estimates are that 26.2 million U.S. employees will not make it to work on like, the next day, right? So by the time you're listening to this, I mean, that's 2 days ago, right?
that's yeah,
26.2 million
that's the
people.
third F, finances. People aren't
What's
going to
that?
make a paycheck. That's the third F, finances.
There you go.
In the
It
world.
estimates $5.2 billion in lost productivity, right? And interestingly, it's a big problem in the United Kingdom, Germany, Mexico, and Canada. And a part of it, just the United Kingdom and Germany, it's the time zone, and it gets, the game gets done at probably 10 o'clock here. It's even later there. And so, this is a worldwide phenomenon in a lot of ways.
Yeah. John, what was the best Super Bowl party you ever attended?
I got some parties with some friends that like it's a full blown like like chef level cooking because the people who throw it are such amazing kitchen artists that and it's like great wine and great and all different types of food. There's barbecue, and then there's all the regular kind of staples of a Super Bowl party, from deviled eggs to dips to 7 layer dip to whatever. And there's enough there that's healthy-ish that you can eat mostly protein and be okay if that's the direction you want to go. But if you want to go full on like Dorito nachos, and for me, it's like that third plate of nachos that gets me, right. Like it all tastes so good. That's the problem.
Yeah, so my current Super Bowl habit is I don't want to be around anybody except me because I want to watch the game. So we did a New England style buffet where we made New England style clam chowder. We did a fish fry, onion rings and so forth. Not the healthiest of things, and not too many appetizers. So we kept it simple. Last year I had a bunch of people over, and it got ridiculous. You know, smoked chicken wings, a brisket. Oh my God, it went on and on and on. Pastas and so on and so forth. I was a wreck last year. So this year I dialed it down a little bit, and I'm really interested, obviously, and I was interested in the outcome of the game. So I really wanted to concentrate.
I think,
Looks like a
for
good.
me, it's it's all about movement the next day. Like with all the food, if I have a bad day eating, I want to get into movement as much as I can, whether it's a long walk but I want to do something to kind of help my body reset and get back to like drinking water and movement. And I'll probably, continue throughout this week to work out really hard to try to get myself back into. For me it was like dry January and sugar free January for the most part, and February off to a little bit more of a tough start, so I don't want to lose all that January momentum.
Yeah, but you don't want to beat yourself up either, and I
No.
think that's important. It's not about what you ate yesterday; it's about what you ate today and what you do today. So, you do want to have some abundance in your life, and don't beat yourself up too bad. What about you,
Yeah,
Randy? What's
fully
that
agree. Yeah,
routine?
our medical practice, we tell people if you're at the steakhouse, get the steak. Like,
Yep.
but if you're not at the steakhouse, then maybe you don't get the steak. Maybe you choose the fish or whatever. Like, I think that's as long as like every day is not a party, 300 days a year, you're gonna be fine. But that's why this week, Super Bowl, Valentine's Day, like there's a couple things, and so for me, it's about just how to be prudent in between, and how to make sure that I keep my habits directionally going the way that I want to go.
Randy, what about you? What's your routine?
Refer to you. I haven't been to a Super Bowl party in years. I want to watch the game. I don't know why I want to hear the announcers because I think they're wrong more than they're right. Depends on the announcer. So they kind of irritate me, but I still do want to hear, and I want to hear reports of people hurt, this and that. I used to want to watch the commercials, and the commercials just, have been more disappointing. But I sit at home. It's not that different. I don't eat that bad. In the past, when I went to parties, I mean, you asked the best. My friend Poncho, who just passed in the last couple of years, but he used to run this big party at his house, and there was a zillion people there, but there were TVs in multiple rooms. People could escape to the game room that didn't want to watch the game. I don't want to be distracted by the 100 people not interested in the game and they're just screaming over the TV. So he had an area outside by the pool. And we just, like, I went there 2 years in a row, and the people, we just sat around the pool, and the people that really wanted to watch the game. So we were able to segregate into, kind of groups of people based on what it was. So that was the best Super Bowl party. And definitely at those places, it's hard not, like, I love chips and queso or chips and salsa and that type of stuff, and then having a couple of drinks. Whereas when I sit at home, I can sit at home and drink water or a cup of tea instead of whatever else, and just eat better, eat normal. So for me,
When
The,
for next
the,
foot that next football season, I got to know. This whole Super Bowl run, so the playoffs, Super Bowl. There's been a number of times I've almost called you mid game to ask you about the linemen and the footwork, because it's something you're so tied into that I didn't understand. And I would ask you if I was sitting next to you at a game. I went to call you. I was like, no, Randy's watching this game. He's pretty intense. I need to check in with him first.
it's okay. I'm not unless the Vikings are playing. I'm not that
So
into it.
I can basically call you any Super Bowl that I want then.
Exactly. Unfortunately, that's very true. Unfortunately,
I
that's
just
very
can't.
true.
I can't let this day go without telling you one of my California Super Bowl parties where it was all in what they call industry people, so producers and writers and actors and so forth. It was in, unfortunately, the Pacific Palisades, in a house that's probably not there anymore. It was about 12,000 square foot home, and like you said, Randy, there were TVs everywhere. The kids were out in the pool, and of the 100 or so people there, maybe five knew which end of a football went forward. They're just like, they were really clueless about the whole thing. But what they were really clueless about was there was a pool outside, and it was kind of like to the side of the backyard, and about half the pool was not visible from the deck or from the patio and what have you. And there were about 10 kids out there, and everyone's in the house. They're eating. Chefs are serving food, and they're hardly watching the game and so forth. And for whatever reason, I walked outside during a commercial, and I see 6 or 7 kids throwing boogie boards into this pool that's probably only 8 feet wide, throwing boogie boards into the pool, running and jumping onto the boogie boards to skid across the pool. And their heads are missing the corner of the pool by micro inches. And there is not a parent anywhere in sight watching these 6, 8-year-old kids do this. So it was just like such an LA moment for me. They assumed their nannies were out there, but there were no nannies. They actually had to be parents that day, and that isn't in their DNA. So anyway, that was one of the most enjoyable. Jan and I, my wife, went out there and did the supervision, and we told the kids you can't do that, and yeah, we took care of it.
Fun police
Classic,
took care of it. There
classic LA. I mean,
The
they're
fun
eating
police.
filet mignon and lobster, and what's a field goal?
So I would like to point out that the entire time Anthony has been telling this story, he has his hand over his heart or his chest like he's Fred Sanford going, "Elizabeth, I'm coming." It was obviously very stressful.
It was very stressful. So
Oh man.
anyway,
Well, that'll take us right into the guest today.
yeah, for sure.
Well,
For sure.
so okay, let's give a summary. I mean, we really started this, and I know fun was part of it. But John, you talked about movement, getting back to eating healthy. I think to me that's the big one. Is even if it's a day, like by the way, you can go to the gym or you can work out all day before a Super Bowl. Or this applies to Christmas, Thanksgiving, a lot of other things too. But don't let one bad day of whether it's diet, exercise, drinking, whatever, turn into 2 or a week or a month or
Well, I
whatever.
don't even like to call it a bad day, right? Like I think just not even giving yourself the shame of calling it a bad day. Like it's okay to go out and celebrate and have that day where you have the food that's not the healthiest food in the world, but get right back into your habits. Like make it easy to get back into those habits, and just get right and move and eat. Those are the things that matter.
Well,
So
all
listeners,
of our F's take. It's a lifelong journey, right? I mean, whether it's fun, fitness, finance, friends. I mean, you're putting energy into all of those F's, as often as you possibly can, and it's not about the one step. It's about the marathon, and you just got to keep that in mind.
well, the party can be the friends and the fun as well. Just
Yep, exactly.
into it and just But listeners, that's going to take us into break. When we come back, we have really special guest Jim Oliver on today, and I think you're really going to like his story. Growing up tough, and the things that to me that really stand out are his mindset about money coming from a place of scarcity and turning it into a mind of abundance. And just man, it's full of nuggets and full of gold. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. So I'll talk to you after the break. Hey, it's Randy from Tales of Abundance. Is starting a business part of your journey? Do you have ambition but no clear path? Maybe you feel trapped in your current career. Do you want a real business that can produce $250,000 or more income for you and your family? We have an opportunity for a profitable business that can be part of your path to abundance. I want to personally invite you to see the proven system we've built. It's designed to give you that freedom and control you've been searching for. Visit premiumcabinets.com/abundance to learn more. That's premiumcabinets.com/abundance.
Here at Tales of Abundance, we know that fitness is just as important as money or milestones. It's one of our key 5 F's. For lots of us, taking care of my body while I build my life is one of the more time-consuming and difficult goals to chase. That's why we're partnering with AG1. It's a daily drinkable habit. Less than a minute, that's formulated with 75 plus vitamins and nutrients and designed to support energy, digestion, and immune defense. It even has a few grams of protein that we're all chasing these days. And if you want to try it with our affiliate link, you'll also receive a free AG1 flavor sampler, plus vitamin D3 plus K2 with your welcome kit when you first subscribe, a $72 value. Go to shop.drinkag1.com/tales.
Listeners, welcome back from the break to Tales of Abundance. As promised, we have Jim Oliver here today, special guest. So welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Where are you calling in from, by the way?
I'm in Naples, Florida.
Ah, all right. It's probably warmer than it is here in Texas because
Well, I don't know. We just had the coldest week that I've ever experienced down here.
all right.
So I don't know. It's pretty cold.
All right. Well,
I don't like to compare temperatures because then you'll tell me it's colder wherever you are.
probably so. Well, Jim, let's jump right in.
Yeah.
Tell listeners a little bit about your background. I think you have a really unique background, and I think it sets the stage for the other topics that we're going to talk about money mindset and some of that type of stuff. So, you want to just give people kind of the, tell us how you got here.
Yeah. So, I was born into foster care. I actually have 5 natural siblings. I was the only one given up for adoption. My birth mother's husband said, if you bring that baby home, I'll kill it. And so she gave me up for adoption. And then I was in foster care till I was 7. And then I was adopted into, I don't know why the state of California would let the 2 people that adopted me adopt me. From an economic standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, they were very abusive. They were dirt poor. And so anyway, I was adopted at 7, and we had nothing. And we were on food stamps. We moved every 6 months because we were breaking leases, not paying rent. And I also grew up in an all black neighborhood. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was the only white kid, right? So yeah, I never felt like I fit in anywhere. And we were so poor that people thought our house was vacant at one time. And I remember walking home with a friend, and he was like, nobody lives there. And I said, no, I live there. And so that's kind of how poor we were in Inglewood. So Inglewood is already rough, but we were like the poor of the poor in Inglewood. So because of that, I was super fascinated with money. And again, in California's incredible wisdom, they decided maybe Inglewood should play against Beverly Hills in football and sports, and also Palos Verdes. So it's kind of like rubbing your nose in it. Like, it's like you're growing up and you're thinking, hey, there's something wrong. What do these people know about money that no one in my neighborhood, my adopted parents don't know? What is it that they don't know, that they don't get? And I was fascinated with money because I didn't have it. And I would visualize having money when I was a kid. And I just had this incredible vision of having wealth. But so I go through school and get out of college and get right into financial planning. Right. And I'm
Hold on,
thinking,
that's a big jump. I mean, Inglewood's
that's a big
tough
jump.
neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Okay.
for those of you in Southern California, like I grew up in Southern California, Inglewood's a
Okay.
tough neighborhood. Beverly Hills, everyone knows Beverly Hills. Palos Verdes, just like Beverly Hills, right? Like very well-to-do area. But like, how did you? I mean, getting into college all by itself was a challenge with that background.
What's funny is I got getting into college. Yes, you're right. And I mean, honestly, it was my football coaches giving me false grades to make it to where I could get into college. I mean, I was a TA.
That's maybe the most honest answer we've heard on this show. Like,
Yeah.
that is okay. All right.
On my own, I think I was a solid 1.2, 1.3 student at a really bad high school. But and our high school was 11% proficient for California standards, by the way. And I'm not saying I was part of the 11%. But I hated school. I was super ADHD, but I loved to learn, right? So when somebody would teach me something that I thought was valuable, and I loved it, like I just absorbed it and asked a million questions until I just had it down. But I hated sitting there all day long in a classroom, even for 45, 50 minutes was like torture. So like growing up, seeing people drive nice cars, but our cars were always broken down, never having even Christmas, like I never liked That's a Wonderful Life, because I was like, that's not reality. Like people don't live like that. And so there was a lot of dangerous things. Like you said, in Inglewood, I sold Cokes at the Forum when I was a kid, and it was my first sales job. So you would show up and you would buy a tray of Cokes for $16. And your job was to sell them for 32. And on a good night, I could sell 3 trays of Cokes. And that was a lot of money. $45 was a lot of money back then. And so it taught me but it's still, I would drive up to Palos Verdes or drive around Beverly Hills and think, what am I missing? What do these people know that I don't know? And I was just so fascinated with money because I was coming from a place of scarcity, and I didn't even understand abundance. I mean, I didn't even believe in abundance then. I really didn't. I thought, man, it's just I'm unlucky, they're lucky, and that's just the way it is. But something happened as you're playing sports, as you're getting confidence, as you're getting bigger, stronger, and you get into college and you think, okay, now I got it figured out. I want to be a financial planner. I want to work in Wall Street because that's how people make money. That's how people become wealthy. That's how they live in Beverly Hills. That's how they live in Palos Verdes. And so I did that. And I was shocked, actually, that every firm that I interviewed with offered me the job. Well, why wouldn't they? It's 100% commission, right? So it's eat what you kill. And I did that for 15 years. And I thought I was helping people, and I thought I was doing the right thing. And I had $700 million under management. And it was really interesting because I was working in the blue collar business owner market, welding shops, plastic formation, anything that you nothing sexy, trash companies.
Yeah.
And so everything that I ever really needed to learn about becoming wealthy, I didn't learn in college. I didn't learn as a financial planner. I learned when I was 13 years old. And when I was 13 years old, I started working in a casket factory. It started in El Segundo and then it moved to Compton. But in this factory, it was the hardware for caskets, so the handles and the decorations. And I swung a hammer for 8 hours a day at 13 years old. And my first day, I got there at 6, and at 9 o'clock, I get a 15 or 30. No, I think I got a 30-minute break. I slept for 27 minutes of it, I'm telling you. I was so tired and I thought, I can't do this. But then I see the owner come in, Dwayne McIntyre. He's the owner of the business. He lives, by the way, in Palos Verdes. Now, this is really kind of a tough thing. He's adopted 4 kids, right? So these adopted 4 kids are living in Palos Verdes. He's sending them all to Pepperdine, right? And again, if you don't know Pepperdine, it's very expensive, very cool, overlooks the ocean. And thinking, again, what did I do wrong? I'm working here. He's the owner. But I watched him, and he would come in for a couple hours. He'd go into his office. I had no idea what he was doing. And then he'd leave. And then, so I thought, okay, the lesson that I should have learned when I was 13, that everything that I ever needed to know about being wealthy is be the owner, be in control, right? So then one day I'm at this friend's house in Hawthorne, which is kind of next to Inglewood. And we're walking down like a really crummy area by Imperial Highway. And I look down, and I know this house, there's like a witch that lives there. That's what we thought as kids, right? There's the old lady that lived there that never came outside. She just looked scary. And so I look down, and there's a guy pulling weeds. And who is it? Dwayne McIntyre. Now, I'd like to tell you that I was really respectful and said, Mr. McIntyre, but I just wasn't that kid. And so I was probably like, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, hey, Jim, I own this house. And I said, you own this house? Why would you own this house? Why don't you own real estate up in Palos Verdes? And he said, I own real estate all over Los Angeles. Okay, so the only 2 things that I ever really needed to know about becoming wealthy was own a business and buy real estate. I could have learned it at 13 and been way ahead, but I didn't. I got into Wall Street. I started working with blue collar because of my factory background. I knew how to talk to these guys, right? And they were great. Nobody else was even calling on them. So I build up to where I have 700 million under management, and I'm charging 1%. And I think life is great, right? This is better than I could have planned it. But then one day I get this report, and it says your clients have gotten 9.38% during this period. And I think, I have money in that. It didn't grow by 9.38%. So I start doing the math, and I take out taxes and expenses and fees and everything else, and it was a little under 4%. And I'm like, what in the heck? Now the math doesn't work. All of these financial plans, these 100-page BS plans that I was putting together for people, the math doesn't work. And I went back and I said, wait a minute, I'm going to go back and look at all of my clients. I mean, I have wealthy clients, 700 million under management, right? And I went back and I looked, what did those people do to become wealthy? And it came down to two things: real estate and business ownership. That was it. I mean, some of the people got lucky at cable companies. I mean, that shows you how old I am. Cable companies and things like that, where they just kind of,
Yeah.
right place, right time.
What's a
But
cable company?
yeah, what's a cable company? Yeah, the young people in the audience. It's kind of like the internet. Remember the internet boom? Yeah, it's kind of like that. Kind of like AI is right now. They were guys that just happened to be in the right place at the right time. But so I thought, okay, I'm telling people how to do this wrong. This is not what wealthy people do. This is not what J.D. Rockefeller talks about in the letters to his son. This is not what they do. He's talking about control the bank, control money, control this, control that. And so I met R. Nelson Nash, who invented or discovered infinite banking, like taking the control of banking. And I decided I was going to help people do that. But my path, I was building wealth. I was building abundance, right? But my clients, and I was like, why can they publish 9.38%? Well, there's a big difference between average rate of return and actual rate of return. Big difference between what they publish and your compound annual growth rate, or your CAGR, right, is big difference. It's all smoke and mirrors and all lies. And the thing that I realized at that moment is that everything that I'd been taught about money was a lie.
I mean, so some number of great lessons. One of the things that I heard is like you hated school, loved learning in high school, in college did well enough, I'm assuming, to get a degree so you could get all those financial planning job offers later on. When do you think you learned how to learn? Like, clearly you loved learning. When do you, like, what were the lessons along the way that taught you to learn how to learn?
You know what? That's a great question, and I love the answer. I was sitting, I was 18 years old. I was working at the Gold's Gym part-time, and the guy that was the janitor asked me to go to get McDonald's, right? And he said, Jim, if you read for 1 hour a day, in 6 weeks, you'll be an expert in whatever topic you're reading about. I have no idea whether it was true. He was the janitor, okay? Not anything wrong with janitors, but for some reason that resonated with me. And I thought, if I read an hour a day, I want to be an expert in whatever subject, right? But I started reading an hour a day, and I started to get better at reading. And I mean, like when you're in Inglewood, you're just surviving. You're not like going home and doing your homework and your parents looking it over, make sure it's good, put it back in your backpack. We didn't have backpacks. I'm not even sure they would let us bring a backpack into Inglewood. But anyway, it taught me that I was in control of what I put in my brain. Just like in Acres of Diamonds. I mean, my field, my brain, I could put positive seeds down, or I could put poison down. And that was the moment that it changed for me. And I loved learning, and I loved education at that point.
Most memorable books for you? What are the top, 1 to 5 books that made the biggest impact on you?
The one that is a good book, but I don't know why it's not. I wouldn't say it's a great book, but the lesson is great. Is The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz, and then I would say Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and here's why: if they made us read it when I was a kid. I'm 60, so I don't know how old you guys are, but they made us read that book, and in the book, Jonathan Livingston Seagull he didn't want to be a seagull, right? He wanted to do tricks, and he just didn't want to be the boring seagull. He wanted to be something more. And I was growing up in Inglewood. I didn't want to stay in Inglewood, right? I wanted more. And so that book, it gave me permission to be more, to do something different. So I would say that book, obviously the Bible, every personal development book, you can see roots in the Bible. I like to read about Stoic philosophy, But the other book that I would say is Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a simple little message. It's not even a true story, but be the rich, act like the rich people act, not act like people that are in financial captivity act. And so I think those are some books that have made a huge impact on me. I read a lot about Tom from Tom Stanley. He was a professor in
Super
Georgia.
smart.
Yeah, and he has this is actually, probably don't like me doing that, but this is actually the textbook, the Millionaire Next Door and everything that he wrote, right? This is the textbook that was the original book, Selling to the Affluent. And it's 500 pages, but it's very detailed. And it, so it taught me that, I didn't want to deal with the doctor and the area. I mean, not the doctors are against. I got a lot of friends that are doctors, but I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to deal with the welder that was making more than the doctor, or the plastics formation guy making $3 million a year. Like, those are my people, right? And so I started to specialize in that area. Like even books like The Four Agreements, be impeccable with your words, don't take anything personally. Like, those two lessons, huge for me.
Yeah, classics.
So,
Yeah.
Jim, I'm fascinated by the mindset thing. I mean, some of that hits so close to home. Like, I didn't grow up in the inner city version. I grew up in the rural Minnesota version. So it took me, and John and I, we've talked about this on previous episodes. Like, I definitely grew up with a scarcity mindset, right?
Me too.
You escaped that, right? And I'm sure where you grew up, there were friends, and I don't think most people do. So I love the questions you're asking, and maybe that's the answer, but how, like, the questions you were asking, you referenced 2 or 3 times, was like, what have these people figured out that I didn't? I wasn't smart enough to ask those questions when I was 13 or 18 or whatever, right? It took me longer. So just people that are doing that, I'm really curious about the mindset change and how you escaped and the thoughts that got you out of that. And I think this applies to almost anything where our mind keeps us in. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I did, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but I started lifting weights and I started to get into getting stronger. And like when my body started getting stronger, I think my mind started to get stronger. And when I figured out that I could be in the top 25% or top 10% in that, then I was like, well, that's a system. It's very systematic how to do that. You got to go to the gym. You got to eat. You got to watch your macros. You got to educate yourself. You got to change up your workout, keep your body growing, right? And I realized that if I did that little bit, and I'll go back to a book, Darren Hardy, Compound Effect, right? Is if I realized for some reason, a gift from God, that just, if I could progress every day just a little bit, sooner or later I was going to get past those people, and that they weren't trying that hard. Like, they were entitled. They figured they grew up entitled in my, comparison. And so I felt like hey, I'm tougher than they are. Like, the adversity, one of my favorite quotes is that adversity introduces a man to himself. Okay. And it's an old quote, so it could be women out there. It could be adversity introduces a woman to herself. But I started to say, the adversity made me tougher, made me stronger. I got nothing to lose. So when I was young, I probably, until I was in my 40s and my net worth was like something stupid that I never even imagined, is I always thought I'd end up homeless again. And I didn't share that part, but at one point in time we were homeless. We slept behind the Moose Lodge in El Segundo. Why El Segundo? I don't know. I wasn't making these decisions. But I remember laying there in a field and watching these other people, and it just made me mad. So I had a chip on my shoulder, but I thought I was crazy because I would visualize my future being like bigger and wealthier and everything else. And until I read about J.D. Rockefeller growing up very poor and visualizing himself as the richest man in the world, which I guess I just didn't have as big of dreams as he did, is I was like, well, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not crazy, right? Maybe this visualization thing and this having a vision is, there's something to it. And so I think it was not having any, I mean, every time I would get into a fight in Inglewood with somebody from Palos Verdes or Manhattan Beach or even El Segundo or something like that, I thought, you got no chance. I have nothing to lose. I got nothing to go home to. Like, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. I don't care. And so I kind of took that same attitude into business. Excuse me. But my friends were in business, were going and they were going after the right tie and the right shoes and the right watch and all of that. I was going after the guy in torn jeans and a t-shirt and like that's what I was going after. I wasn't even in their market. So that comes down to I created a blue ocean, right? Blue ocean market for me. And I wasn't trying to be their red ocean and get the right tie and get the right shirt and get the right suit and make sure that, I had a guy one time say, well, the stitching in your shirt, your suit, you can tell it's not handmade. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, how much is that? I was like 22. I'm thinking, just figuring out how I'm going to pay rent, right? Like, let alone how I'm going to get a handmade suit.
I just told my wife about my first suit I ever bought for work was $99 from J.C. Penney. It still might be one of the highest quality suits I ever owned and lasted for more than, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years. I mean, it was amazing. I wish I could go back and buy that suit again sometimes.
You know what I love is when I was in business, brand new in business, you had to have your tie on, you had to have your suit coat on when you were in the hallway, right? And so the first thing that I did when I actually figured out how really money works and everything else is it's like, and this is a long sleeve t-shirt because it's cold today, but normally I got 40 t-shirts, right? I t-shirts and golf shirts and shirts to go out on dates and stuff with. But outside of that, I will not, I do have one sport coat just in case, but I don't own a tie. I'll never own another tie. I'll go to a black tie event, but I'm not wearing a tie. I'll wear a tux, but I'm not wearing a tie. And I feel like that's captivity. That's to me, I had to do that and I hated it, right? I'm a California kid, casual, t-shirts, flip-flops, shorts. That's why Florida works for me.
I couldn't
So,
agree more. I've always been convinced that the ties were 100% made by a woman or invented by a woman because no man would voluntarily put that noose around their neck every day.
I 100% agree with you.
I don't know. I think a suit looks good on a guy. So, but let's, if you don't mind, staying on the theme of the breakthrough or the breakout. It's great that we all have our personal stories of our own individual successes and those of a lot of our peers. What I wanted to ask is as you're working with people that are starting out, and using Maslow's hierarchy as kind of a framework, you get to a point where you're okay, you're eating and drinking and sleeping, and that's okay. And then, if in your case and in ours as well, most of us, that was kind of good enough, right? I mean,
Hmm.
shoot, finally I'm not sleeping behind the Moose Lodge in El Segundo anymore. I'm okay. And then, you get to the safety and security and health and a little finance. What do you say to someone, or how do you tactically get them to move to the next level? Because that's essentially what you're doing. I mean, you're moving them up the hierarchy step by step. And you did it and started at the age of 13 and got there by 22. You were doing pretty good, and then now you've gone well beyond that. What are the lessons? How do you teach someone or motivate them, or what are the tools you give them to help them move up the ladder?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest shifts is understanding that no one's going to take care of you, right? Like first you have to understand you're not going to win the lottery. You're not going to, go to work for Google when it's brand new. It's not going to happen, right? So that's okay that it's not going to happen. But what you have to do is not focus all on money. Wealth doesn't mean money, right? It's so much more. And you have to have a bigger why. Like, why do you want to be wealthy? And if you were wealthy, what would you do with it? And I say to people, if I wrote you a check for $1 billion, how would your life change over the next week? Right. And if I don't hear from somebody like, man, you wouldn't believe what my synagogue or my church or my favorite charity would get, then you got something wrong, because I believe that everything in this world is energy, right? And whether you believe in God, you don't believe in God, God is energy, the universe is energy, whichever way you want to say it. So to me, once I realized to focus my energy in a positive way, meaning my thoughts are energy, right? And as soon as I learned how to get negative thoughts out of my head really fast, and again, California kid, I imagine it the 405. And I know the 405 doesn't move like this most of the time, but I imagine a car coming in at 100 miles an hour, and I got to get it out of my purview. So a negative thought, I got to get out of my head. And then positive thoughts, I got to add cars, right? I know this is kind of a dumb analogy, but I got to add cars and I got to add more thoughts, because energy attracts more like energy. So it's staying positive. It sounds dumb, but every day I get up, I drink 30 ounces of water, and I say affirmations, right? And I write down the affirmations the night before, so they're in my head. I write down what I'm grateful for, 3 things I'm grateful for. I know it sounds hokey, and what I tell people is I know this sounds hokey. And I think the first time I heard Zig Ziglar or whoever it was in the 80s tell me this, I thought, that doesn't work. And I mean, I spent 10 years saying that doesn't work, but it does. And it's all because of that energy and that mindset. So if you write down, and I have over here, this is painted with that paint that you can write dry erase markers on. And I have all of the different categories in my vision board over here. If you don't have a vision of where you want to go and why you want to go there, it won't change. But as soon as you create a vision, and as soon as you create the why, like, why do you want that? Then, and for me, my why is I had 2 kids by the time I was 23. You know, again, inner city kid, didn't really know how these things work. And was in not a happy marriage. I mean, you know, who's happy at 23 or 22? You know, like, you don't even know each other. Whatever. And, I was like, there's no way in hell that these kids are going to have the life that I had. And so I had this motivation. So my why had a lot of layers to the why. My own insecurities, my own scarcity mindset, my victim mindset, all the things that I grew up with got me nowhere. And as soon as I changed that mindset, it was like I saw progress. And then I didn't get a scarcity mindset by saying, I'm not having fast enough progress, somebody else has more, any of that crap. I just said, I'm going to get better every day. I'm going to get stronger every day. I'm going to get smarter every day. And my energy is going to be better every day. And my thoughts are going to be better every day. Did it happen every day? No, it didn't happen every day, but more days than it didn't.
Are you counseling people directly this way? Is that part of
Yeah, I
your?
do. I don't really do one-on-one anymore. I do more like group stuff and courses and things like that. But I will work with people one-on-one that are going to have a big enough impact on other people. Like if you have, I just started working with somebody who has a huge vision. And I'm like, okay, I don't normally do this. And they were like, how much does it cost? And I'm like, it's not about money. Like, it's about my time, So I'm not going to charge you, but like you go, whatever you were going to pay me, you donate that to your favorite charity or my favorite charity. I do it, but now I do it, I guess, because there was nobody there to help me. Now I help people because that's my passion, is to help people understand that you get one chance at this, and there is no reason for you to live in scarcity. There's just no reason. Yeah. And it's small changes. It's small changes, and it's patience and thinking long term. I mean, that's another great lesson that I learned. Think long term. People overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. I'm 60 years old. I plan on going forever.
Yeah, I just think of kind of, you and I are it's a very similar age. The other two guys are about 15 years younger than us, but the times they are changing, right? And you know
Yeah.
what the way it was in the early 80s for us is vastly different than where we are today. And this despair that seems to be, you know, burgeoning is the best word I could. It's almost like the younger guys and gals are, you know, they're swimming in a slipstream, you know, and the first thing they got to do is get to shore. And if they happen to
Yeah.
get to shore, they say, "Shit, just give me a beach chair and a margarita. You know, that's good enough, man.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, it's really difficult." And you know, I'm pessimistic and hopeful that you know this type of lesson uh, can stick with some number of these folks, but it's not going to be it's not easy. And there's a lot of roadblocks, um, and unfortunately, you know, this divide of those that are going to have and those that are going to feel like they have not necessarily have not, but feel as though they've been left behind is going to continue to spread out. So hopefully your impact will continue to be there for these folks.
Yeah. I think that when people, I always say to like people that younger people, and I was just working with this young woman who's 30 years old, and her mom was a doctor. She passed away. Her dad is in memory care. He's like 66. I mean, she's got like a lot of things going on, and she's working. She's like, I just need a job that I can pay my bills, and I just want to be able to. And I said, no, I mean, like, honestly, that's not something to get you excited and get you out of bed every day. That's just surviving, and just surviving, it'll get harder and harder and harder and worse and worse and worse. And you'll get more and more bitter, more and more scarce. I said, you gotta just say no, and you gotta just like break out of that. And so she's starting her own marketing business. She has an events coordination degree and a marketing degree. She's from Philly, so she's got that kind of northeastern Philly edge, and she's doing it. And she was making like 90 grand a year, and in 3 months, I'm gonna say, I mean, she hasn't quit her job yet, but she's probably 4 or 5 grand a month in marketing company stuff that she has going on. And it's like people think like again, that's what we're taught. Well, if you didn't go to school and become a doctor or an attorney or whatever, then life's going to be hard. You're going to be working for someone else. You're going to have a job. You have to exchange time for money. That's just not true, right? It's just not true that you have to exchange time for money. Again, that's what we're told, though, and that's what one of the lies, right? And everybody has their money monsters. It doesn't matter if you were super rich. I feel sorry. I have another friend whose family owns Wilson Trailer. He's a young guy. When he was 28 years old, he's in this company, or maybe he was younger than that, and he's vice president, whatever. I mean, his company has, or his family has a $55 million jet. And the way that I see it, I feel sorry for him, is he was born on the 26th mile of a marathon, right? I mean, he could roll the other 2/10 of a mile, and nobody's going to ever think he accomplished anything in his life just based on money and position in that company. And, it's not where you're at, it's how far you've come, right? When you can turn around, like Dan Sullivan talks about the gap in the gain. We're always going towards perfection, but you got to turn around and measure back. Like, how far have I come? Whether it's weight, whether it's strength, whether it's nutrition, your health, whatever it is. And so, like, I think that people, when everyone else is pessimistic, great, right? Great. Because that gives me less competition. When everybody's optimistic, well,
Yeah.
that makes it harder. So, like, I think that just you got to be different, right? You cannot be in the herd.
You know,
You cannot be a sheep.
one thing for sure is that there are more tools today to break out, right? There's more
Yeah,
self-help, there's more technology. I mean, the lady you just discussed is basically doing a side hustle.
Yeah.
So that's, and then so instead of watching the Grammys last night, she was probably working on a marketing plan, which is trading time for the future is what she's doing.
Yeah.
So I think there are advantages. So that's what keeps me hopeful. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm
You know,
hopeful
for
too.
I would say that, for me, I wish I'd been a little more attentive to history when I was younger, when it was kind of in my face. I like history a lot more now. But what you're describing about like the lie versus the kind of but business ownership, like a couple hundred years ago, business ownership was the thing, right?
Yeah.
If having a farm, like I think I heard somewhere recently that I don't remember the time frame, a couple hundred years ago, that 90 something percent of Americans were farmers, or some ridiculously big number, and now it's less than 3%. And they were talking about the changes in AI and how we were going to, we shifted over 150 years from an agricultural economy to a non-agricultural economy, and that's going to happen again much faster right now. But if I look backwards, like business ownership has been an answer for a very, very long time. If you look at like a 20,000 year history of humanity, like it's not, and these aren't unknown things. Like, people feel unsettled, and they feel like, I don't know what's going to happen. But I wish someone had told me when I was 20, like, hey, if you actually just look at the patterns over the last,
Yeah.
and then you understand how to utilize the patterns. And then Tony Robbins says how to create the patterns. Like, I think that was super cool when I listened to one of his things recently. I think that's so as I think about my children, what I want them to learn in their early 20s, it's like, hey, you can throw up your hands as a young adult and say, I'm just going to go wherever the tide takes me, and be pretty frustrated. Or you can learn where you can actually have control. And so my biggest hope for them is they understand where they can have control, and they choose to exercise it in ways that they want to move their life forward. And it may be very different than mine, and I'm fine with that. But back to your point about like wealth is not just about money, it's about a lot of things. So maybe let's go back to that for a minute. When you think about being wealthy, how do you think about wealth that's not monetary?
I think let's just use time. Again, I live in Florida. Other than this little cold stretch, I can play golf about 360 days a year if I wanted to. I could be out on the boat 360 days a year. I can be outside in a t-shirt and flip-flops and shorts 360 days a year. So my time is everything to me. Our lives are measured in time, right? And so if you're exchanging time for money, you're exchanging your life for money. That makes you a slave or in captivity. And so to me, having wealth means having my time, right? And then having the money to do whatever I want with whoever I want, wherever I want. That's a bonus, right? But understanding that I don't have to exchange time for money. I don't have to live in scarcity. And you know, um, in the magic of thinking big, one of the things is action cures fear, right? So I think
Action
a lot of these,
cures fear. Okay, cool.
yeah. Now I actually believe action cures everything. And what I mean by that is if you are afraid, then you won't take action, right? If you think you can't lift that weight, then you're not even going to grab it, right? If you think that girl's going to say no, then you're not even going to ask her out, right? But if you don't care whether she says no, if you don't care if they have to spot you on that bench, guess what? You're going to do more than you think you can do. You're going to a prettier girl than you think is going to say yes is going to say yes. And we all have examples of that in our lives, and it happens to me all the time. And so I just shake my head and think, I can't believe she said yes. But my point is that I believe that Tony Robbins, and I love Tony Robbins. He says 90% is what you think and 10% is your tactic or something like that. I'm butchering that. Okay. But the point is that like spending all day trying to come up with the perfect tactics isn't the answer. It's changing your belief. It's changing your mindset. And it happens slowly. I like to use getting in shape and being in shape as an example because everybody's different. I eat the same thing, exactly the same thing every single day during the day. At night, I change it up and I have whatever dinner. But right before we got here, I had 3 chicken thighs, right? I mean, the breasts get too dry, so I do chicken thighs. And I know there's more fat, but I don't care. And I eat 200 grams of protein every single day. So like I do that. I know how much water, and I take the emotion out of it, right? So if I do that, and I know I'm bringing in the right amount of calories, the right amount of protein, and I lift weights, and I go to not to failure at 60, but I go to where I'm like struggling on the last rep, then my body will get stronger. At 60 years old, at 70 years old, I believe still even at 80 years old, I'll be getting stronger. So that little change in saying, I'm just going to be a little bit better. I want to be in the top 1% of 60-year-olds, right? I said by my birthday, which was in June, that I'd have abs. And by January last year, I had abs. Now, all my friends thought, I don't have to have abs. I'm married. I'm like, well, maybe your wife would like you having abs. But so it's being different, not being afraid to be different. But the action part of it is do something, read something, talk to somebody who's an expert, learn something. I didn't know what peptides were a year ago, right? I had no idea what a peptide was. Now I know all about peptides, and I know how it helps me repair and recover. And I'm 60. I swear I feel like I'm 35. And all my friends would say, oh, when you hit 50, these aches and pains and it's all belief. It's all noise. Life is full of noise, and it's finding the signal, the truth. And there are people out there will tell you, and anybody who's really successful, they'll help you. If they're not successful, then they'll try to charge you 100 grand, 50 grand, this, that, whatever. I don't know. I want to help people be successful because that's how I have an impact on this world bigger than me. Is if I can help this 30-year-old become a multimillionaire, billionaire, whatever she is in her brain, all the people she's going to impact. And all I have to do is remove some barriers that people put along the way in her head about what's possible.
I love there's so much gold there.
Yeah, gonna unpack. The show notes are gonna be very long on this one, I think.
I have so many follow-up questions, and it's like, how do I pick which one? But I want to circle back to the business thing because I think you gave some really good advice, like start a business, own your time. But I also think that's scary, intimidating to a lot of people, and they don't know where to start. So if somebody's looking to start a business today, what would you tell them? Like, how do they where do they start? What kind of business?
Yeah, those are great questions. So number one is in The Richest Man in Babylon, one of the tenets is invest in what you know, right? So I would say the same thing in a business. Let's say that I've been a plumber for 5 years, right? Well, then I know plumbing. I could start my own, buy another plumbing firm. That's the easiest thing to do, something I've already got an expertise in, right? So that would be number one. Number two is I'm not opposed to franchises. You got to do your due diligence. You got to really look at what am I buying, right? But then, so that's the second way. The third way is you could buy. I'm right now buying a packaging business in Iowa, and I know nothing about the packaging business, but the business has been there for 50 years, and guess what? They really haven't grown since the dad who started it died. And I see huge potential in that business. I think it could be like Uline because they do nothing online at all, right? So you could do something like that. Then I own over 30 businesses and my principle is easy, is I hire really good people, I overpay them, and I give everyone who's running one of my businesses opportunity for equity. I'm not giving you crap, but you can earn equity over 5 to 7 years. And in 5 years, you can own 20% of the business. In 7 years, you want to buy me out? Fine. Right? I mean, like I'm always open to somebody fulfilling their dreams through those businesses. So what franchise. So now you're taking somebody else's idea system and everything, and you're adopting it, and you're paying them. Sure, you're paying them a little bit, but a friend of mine owns 40 Penn Station sub shops, and he was working in one. He was working in restaurants. Yeah, so like
I've got kids right now that graduating college, and so if I don't have those skills and I don't know a lot about the business world right now, like what are the things I need to focus on right now and learn? today?
So what I would say is, where are their skills? So like what I really believe in is really figuring out things like the Kobe and things like that, where they're like, who are they when they're at their natural? Like, what are they? Where's their unique ability, their God-given gift, their God-given edge, their unique ability, their unique brilliance, whatever you want to, genius, whatever you want to call it. What is it that they're really good at? And then where is a business that needs that? And is there an existing business? I'm in Naples, Florida. If you were young and wanted to own a business, come here, because there's so many old people that own businesses that don't want to do it anymore. Right? And simple businesses. I have a trash business, actually, and I sold 70% of it yesterday, or effective yesterday. The trash business is pretty simple, right? My adopted dad drove a trash truck. And I always told my kids, if you don't do well in school, I mean, I did not take my own advice. Remember, I wasn't a very good parent in my 20s, is you'll end up driving the trash truck. And I remember my son failed the test one day, and he comes to me, he goes, Dad, I guess I'm going to be driving that trash truck. And I said, Tanner, if you're driving the trash truck, we're going to own the effing company. I said, so don't you worry, son. And you know, and so I think that I would find, is their passion? Because if they have something they're passionate about, is there a business out there that they can build, buy, borrow? You know, again, over time, you get in and say, I want to buy this business from you, but I want to learn it from you. So I want you to stay 3 to 5 years. I mean, companies do this. Private equity does this every day. Just copy what they do. Like Tony, again, I love that you mentioned Tony Robbins. Find out what somebody that has what you want, and find out what they did and do that, and then do it better. It's, just do it a little bit better. And if it's the trash business because you saw your adopted dad come in and stinking like the trash every day, and I thought, well, that'd be kind of interesting that this guy was super abusive and a total, sociopath. Well, I'll own a trash company. And by the way, he told me never ever work for commission or variable compensation, only a salary, only a union job. Thank God I didn't listen to that, because then I would be in captivity. Nothing wrong with people that are doing that. But, I love the freedom of doing whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, with whoever I want to do it with.
You mentioned early on, if we swing back, and you were talking about, you worked on Wall Street, you had 700 million, and you realized it was all going wrong. I don't think we've ever finished that thread. I want to make sure before we wrap up that we hit that thread. Like, what is the right way? Like, you've talked about owning businesses and your time, but I'm pretty sure there's more to that story.
Right. So there is more to the story. So what I think about is if Wall Street tells you average rate of return, right? And all you really care about is actual rate of return, and that's a lie, then we don't want to play. I don't go to Vegas and gamble when I know that the odds are against me. If Wall Street, the odds are against me, then I don't want to play. Okay, so what am I going to do then? Well, what happens is, I always like to say compared to what? So, okay, if I'm not going to do that, what am I going to do? Compared to that, the opposite of that, what do wealthy people do? Wealthy people own assets. Why? Well, the government is debasing our money every day, right? I mean, every day they're printing money, which means the dollars in our pocket are going down and down and down and down in value every single day. So that means my Wall Street instruments, I think, are gaining. But when I think of fees, expenses, all of that, they're going down in value. But my apartment complexes are going up in value because rents keep going up. My customers, their prices go up because I'm keeping up with inflation. So assets go up in value as the government prints more money and instruments go down. So I want to own assets. Assets create not a nest egg like instruments, right? And again, this is a lie. We were taught that we accumulate money, we save money, save money, save money, do without. Dave Ramsey, do without. and then you get to a certain nest egg amount, and then you stop working, and then you distribute that money, and you hope that the sequence of returns, and you hope that you don't get bad advice or get ripped off or, you know, whatever, and you hope you don't live too long before you run out of money. That just seems stupid, right? That's what we're taught to do. But what about this? Is I'm in my 20s and I start to get passive income and passive income and passive income and passive income. And I'm telling you, in 10 years, you'll be financially independent. I've never seen anybody take longer than 10 years buying assets. Well, I don't have any money. There's ways to buy assets without money, right? The people that are trying to sell these businesses, they want cash flow for the rest of their lives. You have time, they have money, work it out, right? I mean, and that's what I help people do is like, how would I propose that? But back to so it's understanding how it really works. And so the thing that I realized is, wait a minute, I'm not in control. Even as their financial babysitter, financial planner, I'm not in control. I'm telling them what I think, but I'm only parroting what the companies are telling me. They tell me, and then 15 minutes later, I'm telling my clients the same thing. And with AI now, I'd just be dictating it into my plod, and then it would spit out an email, and my clients would think I was brilliant, right? And if I was right,
Our
then I look
secret's
brilliant.
out, Jim. You just ruined our secret.
But buying assets, and I mean, don't you always, everybody knows somebody that they, you know, they're not the smartest maybe in class, they're not whatever, but everything they touch turns to gold, right? They buy this motel, then they fix it up, they sell it, and then they go. It's not rocket science, but you have to have the confidence to step outside of the herd, right? And confidence is a skill set. Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, the best thing he ever produced was something that said, always be improving your confidence. And I think he stopped producing it because it was so good that people didn't need strategic coach if they listened to that thing. But it was the best. He put it on an iPod for me in the 90s is when I got it. And it was like the greatest thing of all time. I listened to the thing over and over and over again, and I let somebody borrow it, which is a big mistake. And somehow they wiped it off my iPod. But if I can't find it, and they won't sell it to you. Like I begged them for it. But building that confidence. So your kids, you know, John, I mean, like, first of all, start with mindset, start with confidence, start with understanding how things really work, mirroring wealthy people. Find somebody in your town. What you asked about learning back in the day. So one of the things I would read, but I just didn't comprehend. By the way, I have my copy signed of this textbook, which that's why I have it right here on my thing. But I would read, and I couldn't tell you what I just read on the piece of paper. But then somebody, I didn't create this, it's not mine, told me to take notes while I was reading. And guess what? As soon as I started doing that, I started to comprehend. But every time I started to take notes, I made questions. Like, I didn't understand that. So then what I would do back in the day is through snail mail, I would write a letter from my notes and my questions to the author. I'm not saying every time, but almost every time I got a response. And I'll give an example of this. So The Go-Giver by Bob Berg, another one
Great
of
book.
huge, great book.
Great book.
If you haven't read that book, drop everything you're doing, read it tonight. Don't go to bed until you finish the book, which you can by the time you go to bed. So I started emailing Bob Berg. Then he emailed me back. Then he said, call me. So I called him. And so all of a sudden, now I have a relationship with Bob Berg, and he's explaining how the book all came about and the principles and everything else. And I was like, wow, it's one little action. Remember, action cures everything. One little action created this huge understanding for me. And he's an incredible guy. I mean, there's never been an exchange of money between, anything like that. It's not about that. People that are super successful and super genuine, like Bob Berg, they don't want your money. You know, I don't want people's money. I want to help you make more money. And if you want me to be a partner, that's how I end up in these 30 businesses is, hey, Jim, we'll do it with me. Okay, I'll do it with you. What, you have an in? what are we doing? So the packaging company, I didn't find that. A great friend of mine, Stan, he found it, and he's like, Jim, you want to be partners in this packaging company? And I said, tell me about it. Show me the financials. Show me, do a quality earnings report, all the things that I didn't know what they even meant that I've learned along the way. And it's like, okay, I do all of that. I send it to a team of guys that are a lot smarter than me, and they come back and say, oh, this company's not worth this. It's worth that. Offer that. Okay.
This has been great.
So
Yeah, I think there's we could go 3 more hours, but to be respectful of your time, where do you want to send people? Where can people find you?
Well, you can go to, I have a community where there's free courses on there about like how money really works. And I've got calculators. So like if you're the engineer, you need to see the math. I got that. If you're the psychology guy, I got that. And, so you can, like, if you go to the App Store and you just type in, Breakaway Wealth Community, or you can go to our website, which is CreateTailwind.com. And the reason it's called Create Tailwind is most people are fighting a headwind, either in mentality or financially or whatever. And we try to show people how to create a tailwind, right? How to get things to push you along. It's not that hard. You just got to sometimes change the direction of your airplane. And so CreateTailwind.com. The community is great because it's other people just like you, and it's peer to peer. Nobody's running it. It's not ours. It's the community's. But there's a lot of courses on there that that debunk a lot of lies about money. Like save your money in a 401k. Your equity in your home is your biggest asset. Save money and then live off it for the rest of your life and hope you don't die too late. So all those things are lies.
All right.
So you can go there.
Sounds like gold. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Definitely been a pleasure. Listeners, as always, download, tell your friends, do whatever you can to help our algorithm, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find us. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you guys. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and I'm glad for the work that you guys are doing to serve your audience and serving people out there. And that's another key is serve other people.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Click follow for more content like this, or go to talesofabundance.com to join our community and get free tools.